Welcome to Mind Over Matters, the live stream where your mind actually matters. My name is Syme, and hosting the show with me today is Adam and Samad. Tak sends his apologies. He's out. Where is he, Samad? He said he was out doing some Bangla
Bangla Dukan shopping.
or
Yeah. He's doing
So
some grocery runs, last minute
he-
grocery runs, and
uh,
he's got like
you know,
all these people that want to catch up with him because he's really famous.
he's a
Just the
rock
way it
star.
is, yeah.
Needs
Just
to
the
needs
way
to
it
do some of
is.
that Bangla shopping. But we've been off the air for a couple of weeks, and we really missed our audience. So I'm really looking forward to today's show. Lots has happened since we were last on the air. Biden has won the election, well, at least according to the major news networks in the United States. Trump has also declared victory, and he's launched some 30 cases through various state legislatures in the United States. From the last count, I think he's lost 25 of those cases with one victory. So it's one victory and 25 losses. And I think there's another few cases to go.
I think there's three left. I think
Three left.
I think
Three
the last
cases
time- the last time I
still
checked,
to
yeah.
go.
Yep.
But not faring very well. But we'll see. Never underestimate Donald Trump is what I say. But episode 14 is what we're on. And so two topics we want to cover today. One is Biden has said that he will forgive up to $50,000 of college debt from the balance of every college debt holder in the United States. And we want to hear from our audience whether we think that's a good thing. And it's, as Australians, it's not a problem that we really have. I mean, we have the government paying for most of our university tuition, but we do have some debt, but certainly not to the extent of American college students. And the other issue we'd like to talk about today, or topic, is does a Biden victory spell the end of Trumpism? And have a think about that one. So does a Biden victory spell the end of Trumpism? Let's start with that topic, Adam. What do you think about now that potentially Biden will be in office will be inaugurated on the 20th of January. Not too far in the distant future. And does that mean that the last 4 years of Trumpism, whether we think that's been good for the United States or good for Americans or not, but that phenomena known as Trumpism,
I need to probably have like the definition of Trumpism more like defined. Like, is it like policies under Trump? Is it the kind of, I guess, like the current like direction of the RNC? Like, is it
I think it's a very elusive and loose term, but I think it generally
it depends on like what I guess
and
what
that's why
group you
I
belong
don't
to, right? That also
well.
It does really play a role on that as well, if you think about it.
Sure, I guess people who are maybe Trump supporters might consider Trumpism differently to maybe someone who might be their opponents, right? I guess. I mean, I can just talk about like maybe the political, like phenomena that is Trump, and whether like maybe people are being more politically active than they were maybe like 4 years ago. I think people are going to be more aware. I think that's going to be obviously something that's definitely going to happen, and I think it's kind of been shown with the vote tallies, right? Like 71 million people voted for Trump, right? Like these are.
I think it's closer to 73 now.
73. Yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was 73, but I wanted to underestimate. But yeah, all right. So 73 versus like 73, right? That's not a low number in any respect, and I think. To like
nearly 73 and a half, by the way. Nearly 73 and a half. That's a huge number.
Yeah, and I honestly don't think that the vast majority of these people are like these hardcore like Trump supporters who are going out to rallies and stuff. These are probably just everyday Americans who are most likely just either like right wing or they're like center, or they probably make up the vast majority. Single issue voter, right? Like and to be I've also been a single issue voter in the past. Back when Kevin 07, right?
Yeah.
Good old Kevin 07. I voted for Kevin because he, like, purely because he said he'd try and get fiber optics introduced into like our internet, and then it didn't happen
it wasn't his fault.
I know.
You can blame the LNP for that.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, exactly. But that's the reason why I voted.
And wasn't it Scott Morrison, by the way? Wasn't it Scott Morrison who?
He was the communications minister at the time. So our current prime minister is at fault for that.
It's the culprit, really the culprit in this.
I think it's. I know we're talking about Trumpism and that, but you've raised a really interesting point, and I thought I'd maybe if we can just slightly deviate and come back to this, but
sure.
But I'm not sure if any of you have 5G. On your phones yet, but I recently got 5G through Telstra, and I'm getting about 150 megabyte, not megabit download speeds, right, on my 5G. And Telstra is giving me
but I had 5G
advertising.
I had 5G gives you corona, man.
It gives you everything.
A fast internet connection and COVID.
yeah. But here's the thing: the government has spent close to $40 billion on NBN, and then in the space of in the last this is over the last 10 years, has spent $40 billion, and probably another 10 billion to go. And here is Telstra rolling out 5G over the last 12 to 18 months, and they're getting speeds that is faster than the NBN and on a wireless network. Sure, the reach isn't going to be all the way to some people out in rural Australia or rural Victoria, but
most people who are out in rural Victorian stuff are usually using like satellite anyways, which is super expensive.
Satellite
but like that's like
satellite phones are pretty big, yeah.
But I thought it was quite clever because when NBN Co formed, the company that was building the NBN infrastructure, that took a lot of business away from Telstra. Telstra Wholesale and Telstra Retail, and so Telstra, their new strategy is, well, we don't need to make money from the NBN. We'll just build an entire parallel network and just get and
they're also selling those pocket 5G dongles, right? So people can get it in other ways. If you're and mind you, just how big of a mess NBN is, depending on like where you live, what kind of connection you're gonna get, can make such a big difference. For some people, that those dongles, when 5G becomes more widely available, may be the better option, right?
Potentially.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny because I think like our like cable internet and all that is like top maybe top like 50 or something in the world or something like that. But then like our like actual mobile internet is like top 10. Right, like it's crazy. Like
it's like
even
a big
I don't want to say for sure, but it's like it just goes to show that like where we've put all the kind of research and money into in terms of infrastructure when it comes to things like the internet, right?
I know a lot of people don't even have broadband anymore. They just hotspot because they're happy. If they're living by themselves, they don't need to have. They feel like they don't feel the need to, I guess, lock themselves into another contract. So what they do is they just end up going with, a package that gives you 100 gigs. And for most people, that's plenty. You can get like an additional SIM card for $5 or $10. You can pop that into another device and you're pretty good, So there's all these network companies have decided to, give people a workable alternative, right? And people talk about alternatives, but this is an actual alternative that can sometimes perform better than the usual option.
Yeah, it's high speed and it's portable and it's becoming more affordable.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's quite clever from Telstra's perspective because they've just been cannibalized by NBN over the last 10 years, and they've come back and said, you know what, we're gonna build an alternative network that actually is going to compete with NBN, and they've done a pretty good job of it from what I can see.
That's a great.
That's a great. Yeah. Now I was just gonna say, even that deal that I mentioned to everyone, and I think three people picked up on that deal, including myself. Sorry, make it 4. the gift card deal, man. That was very
Oh, yeah.
lucrative.
Hot-
Very
hot deal.
lucrative.
And
Yeah.
that was a Telstra
yeah,
deal, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what was that deal? Best for my education again, and then for the audience. Again.
So
What
if
was the
anyone's
deal?
looking-
Hang on, are we selling?
We've gone on a
Yeah,
tangent,
this
but let's
this,
just, let's just go.
this
Let's just,
podcast is sponsored by
Telstra. Before we're already on the end of that tangent, so let's just let everyone know that JB Hi-Fi and Good Guys, both that are owned by the same company, have a deal with Telstra. They do this very often. So if you're looking to buy a new plan or a new mobile phone outright, this is a really good deal to consider. Considering you get the Telstra network, which of course has better coverage than any other network in Australia. With asterisks, of course.
Yeah, and you can give NBN the finger.
Yeah. So it's a $59 deal for new customers. You get 80 gigs of data. This is a 12-month package, by the way. So you don't, beyond 12 months, you're not bound by the contract. And I would suggest you cancel that contract after 12 months. You get $500 of gift card either at JB Hi-Fi or Good Guys. And
You can use
pay-
that gift card to purchase the phone.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. It takes a big chunk out of that. The mobile phones have become hell expensive, and it takes $500 it's a pretty big thing. You put it towards whatever you want to put it towards. But if you're looking for a new phone, then I think that's a really good way to go about it.
And remember to use the Mind Over Matters referral code now.
Yeah.
for 10% off your next phone purchase, mate.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's $59. You get 80 gigs, and I think they have like.
And what phone was it?
Well, it's up
you
to
get
you.
to
You
choose.
get it's
You get a gift card.
$500.
Okay.
It's $500 for anything.
And you put that towards a phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't buy a
okay,
phone this
gotcha,
time,
gotcha.
so I'm holding on to that $500 gift card. I'll use it when I need to.
Samad, are you
Yeah.
going to give me a $500 gift card for my birthday?
Oh, after you give
Oh,
me a
that's
$500
just-
gift card for my birthday.
But yeah, like to kind of get back to the I guess original point, like yeah, I've voted on single issues before in the past. And to be fair, like most people don't really like holistically look into like everything somebody is presenting in a platform. In fact, you should probably be looking at your local electors when it comes to doing any kind of voting, because that's going to be more likely to directly affect you than something that's more federal. But yeah, like so as a result, to kind of get back to the original point, like there's a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump. And that's kind of showing that, yeah, there is still a lot of people who kind of either agree with some of the policies that he's implemented, whether they be on like economics or whether they be on climate change or whether they be on healthcare. They fundamentally at least agree with facets of it. So those people aren't going to just disappear. You don't have 70 million people just die off after 4 years, right? Like, so those people are still going to be around. They're going to be, and the main thing is there's going to be a very large, I think there's going to be a very large magnifying glass being placed on this this potential new administration. Sorry, I gotta say it like that in a technicality, but this new incoming presidency, because it's going to be compared to Trump, which a lot of people see as like quote unquote the worst president, right? And
That's
so
very true.
everything he's going to be doing will be compared to with something that Trump's done potentially, right? Like for example, Trump's left the World Health Organization and now Biden wants to re-enter it. That's not going to,
As well as the Paris Accords.
and the Paris Accords, right? That's not going to be, and the Paris Accords, like like a lot of people, like if you look into it, it's not really something that's super beneficial for America, and a lot of people who are a part of those agreements, such as China, Russia, don't have to be held to the same standards as other countries like the EU, Australia. Australia is a part of it, I'm pretty sure, right? Like things like that. Again, these are just a thing. It's not going to be everything. But when the Republicans are going to bring up something, they're going to be like, well, what about this or what about Y? And the headlines are going to be comparing X to Y or Trump to Biden, right? Whether that's going to be something that's like long term or, the thing about the Trump phenomena is that you put Donald Trump in a headline and you're going to get clicks, right? Now, are we going to get that with Biden? He's not cool like Obama. He's not bombastic like Trump. Are people going to really care too much about what he's doing when it comes to like the more niggling things that are in the public sphere? We'll see. Maybe if it's something big, like I said, like rejoining WHO, because again, WHO is kind of really controversial in regards to like people around. Like Australia's taken a really kind of tough stance against China, but we're still a part of the World Health Organization, right? So not everybody's kind of cut the cord. But are people going to be seeing that as, well, Biden's being soft on China? Ooh, like that's going to be the questions, kind of going into the next kind of presidency, and whether or not people will care.
I think what's going to be very interesting is there are some key changes. So from your day-to-day life, most people won't notice the big change, when there's the transition to a democratic government, right? I mean, when I say democratic government, I'm talking about Democrats, the party, right?
The DNC.
The DNC, right? I think the key difference would be the attitude as well. So even the attitude towards the Affordable Care Act and the sorts of it. So the real question would be, is it going to get repealed again? Just the way that Obamacare did, for the most part.
Well, isn't that going to be up to the Supreme Court? Not really. Like they're going to be taking the case about the Affordable Care Act up to the Supreme Court, and because they have a 5-4 majority. 5-4 majority. It depends on. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just looking at it from politically, who has the advantage in the Supreme Court? Are they going to rule certain things as constitutional or not? And before the Affordable Care Act was brought forward to the Supreme Court and was shown as being unconstitutional. So if it happens again, it's likely that it might not, but it doesn't mean like they can't amend it or come up with something that meets the criteria. I don't know what that would be. Again, I'm not a constitutionalist. I don't even remember. I don't even remember what exactly was unconstitutional. What was ruled as unconstitutional in regards to their argument about the Affordable Care Act. Do you remember, Simon?
No, I don't. I thought that it lost in the High Court, and then it went to the appeal to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And so it's currently in the Supreme Court at the moment, and they're waiting for a decision out of the Supreme Court.
But I thought maybe I'm just misremembering. Like maybe when it was under Obama, I thought they tried to get things through and it didn't. But maybe I'm just misremembering.
The Republicans have repealed Obamacare.
Yeah.
But they haven't been able to dismantle it because it's still in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, some I think some aspects of it are still benefiting some of the red states, which is very interesting. I find that to be quite interesting that some of the red states are the ones who are benefiting from that Obamacare.
Yeah, in all likelihood, I think on the 20th of January, and very soon after that, they'll take the case out of the Supreme Court, and we'll still have the remnants of.
Well, he did say he's going to turn it into Biden care.
Doesn't have the same roll off the tongue.
Yeah. So for our audience who maybe joined us a little bit later, what we're discussing is does the Biden victory spell the end of Trumpism? And from my point of view, I think I see two aspects to Trumpism. One is the Trump in front of the camera, his basically public persona, and how the media just gobbles that up, right? Because of whether he's on Twitter or whether he's talking to a journalist or he's got the camera pointing towards him. He has a way about him that no matter what he says, it managed to stir controversy. And so that's one aspect of Trumpism I see. And I think that aspect of Trumpism, if he's no longer president, I don't think the cameras will be pointing towards him. At least I hope not. Right? I mean, at least I hope so. I should say. Well, the cameras are not pointing towards him.
Well, this is go on.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, in certain news divisions, they dismantled certain news teams and then created one purely just to kind of focus on Trump-related news, right? I'm pretty sure that
Yeah.
was the case
Yeah.
with CNN, right? And so that's purely a marketing move because they're able to see, what do people click on? What do people, what's going to bring attention to our website in order to put ads in front of people's eyes. That's ultimately what it comes to, right? And I don't see the current situation really changing so much. If they can put his name in something, if they'll use the term Trumpism just to kind of clickbait someone over to an article, they'll do it. It hasn't really changed for a lot of really kind of big topics. Because again, one of the big sources of one big draw to people when it comes to clicking on something is anger and excitement, right?
Yeah, or
now,
fear as
anger
well.
is fear. I'd have to look at what it. Yeah, but I think fear is probably part of. Like fear is kind of like a middling between like excitement, right?
Yeah.
And so people love clicking on things that kind of is like, oh, makes them angry, and they're more likely to share things that make them angry, right? Same thing with things that make them excited. It's like, oh, look at this, I don't know, cool like river or something. It's cool waterfall. Wow, amazing. But then they're also more likely to share things that make them angry. Like, oh, look at this thing that happened. Doesn't this make you mad? And they want to kind of like perpetuate it. And so that's why you kind of see like in the age of Trump, like certain things that would elicit anger is going to be front headline, even when whether it's presented correctly or not, it's going to be headlines that are going to get people to click on things, and so that's the main thing. Like, and that's what I was saying before about when my assessment is like, is Biden going to be drawing people to like click on things? I don't know. That's the main. I don't think so.
You certainly raise a good point, and I'm kind of looking at Trumpism as two parts. So one part is the kind of the media attention, right? And Trump really understands, like he really understands marketing. Like he really, really does. And
Well, he's been in business.
He's a media mogul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
exactly.
he what he's been able to do, he understands that controversy is newsworthy, and even in the most boring of topics, he can say something that's controversial because it creates headlines. And it sends the media into a frenzy for the next few days until he says something else. But I feel as though he's saying these things because he knows what is attention grabbing, and he says those things because they're attention grabbing, and because that it will give him a broader audience, and that's been his strategy for the last 4.5-5 years, right? But I really think that if you've seen the election coverage and even now when certain members of the Trump administration they talk about election fraud, that the journalists, even Fox News journalists, will stop or pan away or cut the feed, right?
Well, yeah,
and that's another topic, and I know we should get into
pretty...
that today if we can. But so my point is,
Sorry,
I think
what were you
Trump,
talking about?
The issue that so when we're talking about when people talk about election fraud,
Yeah.
right, that news will cut away from them or cut the feed. So this has been happening all over, even on the major networks in the United States, including Fox. So if you've been following what's happening in the United States,
which is pretty problematic because again, whether or not you again, election fraud does happen. I even talked about it in I think maybe episode 10 about absentee ballots and the increase of absentee ballots leading to more fraud and also more contested elections. Which, look at this, we're having a contested election in a time where we've had record-breaking numbers of mail-in ballots.
But let's come back to that because it's a really important topic and there's a lot to discuss there. But I'll finish my thought on Trumpism. I think once he's no longer president, the media will still want the clicks and Trump will still say the things that are. He's not going away. It's not like they're going to lock him up on the 20th of January. He's not Shaitan that gets locked up during Ramadan. It's not how it works. So he's going to be out and about. and he's going to want to say
Not just
even
out
more
and about.
controversial things, right?
I don't
he's
think
going to want
he's
to
just
say,
going to be. Sorry, Simon. I'm just going to say.
go ahead.
I don't think he's going to be just out and about. I think he's going to be. He's going to play a big role in the Republican Party because his narrative has brought people back to the.
I don't. I
No,
disagree.
That's even no. That's Republicans themselves saying it, and what that no. So he may not himself be active, but they're going to use him as bait to keep people around because that's the whole point of Trump 2024 because that's how he gets his.
So I don't know. I know there's a lot of talk about Trump running in 2024. I don't see that
That's
happening.
just for he may not run it, but it's more about getting the funding, getting the donations to keep that engine running, right? Like if he says that he's out of politics, then he's no longer an active player. If he says that if he loses this election and he's going to fight in the next one, that keeps people intrigued. So people have this hope that if not this time, he may come around the next time.
Well, the thing is, he can legally run in 2024. Whether he actually runs is a
that's the thing.
Different topic,
right?
Because he'll be like what? He's 74.
He's 74 right now.
He'll be 78.
So he'll be 78 when he's running. So the same age.
Biden's
age. Yeah. I guess if he's the same age as Biden, then I guess it's still possible.
It's certainly plausible, like for him to run. I just don't.
And I don't think Democratic Party's going to ditch him just as yet. I don't think so. I feel like they're going to use
Republicans.
I mean, sorry, the Republicans won't ditch him just as yet.
Maybe he'll run as a Democrat. In 2024.
Imagine that.
Yeah, anything can happen.
I've reformed.
He'll.
Democrat.
But I'll quickly finish. I'll try and quickly finish my thought. But so Trumpism, that part of Trumpism, the kind of the public-facing, attention-grabbing nature of his commentary, that I think will most of that will go away because if you're not a president or you're not running as a candidate for the elections, then the cameras are not pointed in your direction. Mm-hmm. But Trump loves attention. He loves to say controversial things that grab attention. So he'll continue to do that. But I think the journalists and news bureaus have become a little bit wiser than they were in 2015 and 2016, and they won't give him as much attention as they once did. Not all of them. Most of them won't. And we've seen Fox turn away from him by and large.
Yeah.
And even if he wanted to run in 2024 without support from a major news network, I just can't see him making an impact. And so that's Fox has come into line. They realize Biden's the president-elect, and they've now, as a result, they're cutting Trump administration pundits from speaking or saying things about election fraud because they know that the writing's on the wall for Biden's victory. The other part of Trumpism is the phenomena that created Trump. So something in America has changed over the last 6, 7, 8 years. And that has caused, for whatever reason, the Trump that has created the conditions to allow someone like Trump who's an anti-establishment, who, despite his own moral failures that we're aware about, is still very closely aligned to the evangelicals and has a lot of support from Christians, and within Christian.
54% of the Christians voted for Trump.
So, and the big voters are Catholics and evangelicals in that group. So, whatever phenomena, the conditions that created Trump, those conditions haven't just gone and won't go on won't just disappear on the 20th of January. They're around. And they'll continue to be there. So I think what scares me is the next candidate from the Republican Party will most likely take on the role that Trump was playing, which is populism. And that person may not be in his 70s. It could be, imagine a 40-year-old Trump, right? That with a good grasp of a good vocabulary, a great debater, and populist. Like he will destroy the Democrats, right?
Yeah. Essentially, someone who's got the same kind of like
Ted
gravitas
Cruz.
as. I mean, Ted Cruz would probably be better. Like, but that's the problem. That's the thing, right? Like, Ted Cruz was like a
Mate.
nobody prior to Trump, right? Like, but now because of the like popularity and like 4 years under Trump, Ted has gotten a far bigger kind of like focal point, and being someone that
Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson.
What are you guys talking
like,
about, man? You guys are sleeping on the best one out here, the best conservative
I
out
know,
here.
Don't say,
what-
don't
yeah,
say.
I know what you're- I know who you're gonna say, so just say it. Just say it. Why not?
Just get it out of the way. I know you want to. I don't know.
Ben Shapiro.
Oh, actually, I didn't think that. No, I couldn't imagine Ben. I
Facts
couldn't
over
imagine.
feelings. That's gonna be the motto.
No way. No way.
Nah, there's no
No,
way. I mean,
There's way more money.
Yeah.
Like,
But-
it'd
but,
have to be
look,
an actual politician.
If it was Tucker Carlson,
Tucker Carlson,
like,
get
he's-
Sean Hannity. You
No,
got-
You could do
no.
that.
But someone
Sean
smart,
He's gonna yell over
someone smart
everyone.
that actually can string a sentence together coherently.
But Tucker Carlson looks like an idiot. Like his face, he looks baffled at all times.
As in, like,
well,
this,
I mean,
he's always like, I'm always angry.
look, Biden
hate
looks like he
baby
just.
face with his baby face.
I mean, Biden looks like he came out of a crypt, man. Like, it's not necessarily about looks. It's all about like, you know, whether or not you can actually, convey ideas, and whether people, and whether you can rally people to go. Because again, like, I mentioned this on another show as well. I don't know about now, but at the time, like, Tucker Carlson's show was like #1 when it came to like, I think cable TV network, like prime time, like, you know, show, like news show, something. I don't know what arbitrary like thing it is, but that's pretty big in terms of news in America and what people tune into. So
But
you know, when
he's
people-
he's not news though. He's opinion.
Yeah.
well, it's news and opinion.
Well, it's American.
No. That's
television,
American
so it's-
news.
everything is
That's
opinion.
American
Right.
news. It's mostly
Well.
opinions presented as news, right?
Well,
Like, he will take-
look.
No, but
if,
Tucker Carlson is an opinion show. Hannity's an opinion show.
Yeah, but people look
other
at-
parts of
people
Fox
watch
News is
those.
Not.
People watch
That's
Tucker
because
Carlson and Hannity.
Fox audience prefer opinion shows than
Yeah,
actual news,
and they take that
that's
as
just a fact.
news.
I'm
Yeah.
not just making that up. It's a fact.
Sure. But I'm just saying, like, what he presents is like news in a way that you can convey through opinion. Like, there's no way that, like, you know, the stuff that he talks about, it's not all of it is just things that, like,
I mean,
when you say
what he
opinion,
talks about is newsworthy.
no, but like when you talk about something that is like something can be an
It's not-
opinion, but
well, he doesn't have any facts.
predicated.
It's not
Yeah, no,
all
but-
entirely based on facts, right? Like a lot of his, if you listen to it, it's
Well, no, they are based on facts. It's just the selective facts.
Well, I mean, when we're talking about politics, all things are
selective.
selective.
Well, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Is there's a difference between, you know, news and opinion news. Like, for example, Q&A is not news. It's
about
like
QAnon?
opinion show, right? So Australian Q&A.
Yeah, or Quanda, which
yeah,
is,
Quanda,
for a long,
Quanda, yeah.
by the way, for a long time I was like, what the hell is Quanda?
Quanda, yeah.
I was like, what the hell is this Quanda show?
It's a cool name.
I can't say it's a cool name. I like
I mean,
Q&A,
as in the short name, the Quanda name is pretty cool. But Q&A, maybe not.
well, yeah, Q&A you might just get it confused with like Q&A. But yeah, like
AMA.
Yeah, man.
ask us anything, mate. Sorry, to kind of get back to your point about Trumpism. Go.
Yeah, so I think I've completed my thought. So
okay.
The second item was basically that the conditions that created Trump are still around, and it just takes someone like a Ted Cruz or a Tucker Carlson to run for president, and I think there'll be a return to some form of populism. So I don't think it's over, and I think
No. Far from
Trump supporters. And when I say Trump supporters, I'm not talking about the 73 odd million people that voted for him. I'm talking about like the really like avid cult like Trump followers, right? That chased around, and it was funny, that chased around the Biden bus. Dangerous, but don't do it.
Oh,
But,
right, yeah,
you know,
yeah,
a lot of those
sure,
types
right,
of like
right.
carrying flags and like cornering a Trump campaign bus on a Texas freeway, like that's pretty funny. But those types of Trump supporters have really, that you know, even the chanting, the supposed Million Man march for Trump, which
That's still pretty
had
big.
by most accounts, at the very best, 10,000 people show
No,
up.
no,
no,
that's
no,
actually
no,
that's
no, no,
actually
no,
no.
no.
It's
It
for
was-
it,
it
like so.
was-
Even media pundits,
Yeah, yeah,
says
yeah.
that was like that was a misattribution that people were saying that it was 10,000, but in reality, it was predicted to be about from 100,000 to 200,000.
Yeah.
Depending on which news agency.
Yeah, I mean, the Trump spokesperson
No,
said there was
not-
1 million people. And
Yeah, but
and
there's a big-
even if. Sorry,
But there's
go
a big difference. But there's a big difference in terms of like 10,000 and like 100,000, right?
Well, I think
yeah, there was a ton of people.
There's a lot of
during that
people.
march. It wasn't a million, but like most like modern Million Man marches, don't get 1 million people anymore. Let's face it.
Yeah, I mean, whatever the number was, right? It certainly wasn't 1 million, and arguably maybe there was 100,000. Some people are saying 200. Based on anything I've seen, it's very difficult to believe that there was 200 people. Whatever the numbers are, the point being is that these people will find in those marches that when they were yelling and screaming about cancel Fox, and they were saying things they've turned against Fox, which is what we talked about in previous shows. Is now that Fox is towing the line with the Biden win, Trump supporters these avid Trump supporters have abandoned Fox, and where are they going to go? They're going to go to Owen, right? OAN.
Owen, Newsmax.
They're going to go to Newsmax. They're going to go to Epoch Times. They're going to.
What about?
Are they a news network?
What about Trump?
I think they just do print.
I thought they just did digital.
Wasn't Trump planning on launching his own news network?
That was a rumor. I don't think there's any legitimacy to those. Like this, that just seems to be like people just like it's this typical thing that it's this typical thing that I see from the news media all the time, where it's just like anonymous sources say that Trump wants to do X and Y, but they don't really present like anything other than, well, just trust us, trust us, guys. Like what motivation really does, like it could happen, but like I like to see, I'm an evidence-based person, right? Like show me like something that shows that Trump is using whatever leftover funding that he has now to try and start a network. Show me evidence of electoral fraud that's happening in America, right? Like show me everything, right? Like all these kind of speculative things don't really mean much to me in the grand scheme of things. Like
it's speculation. Yeah,
like it's baseless speculation. Like speculation doesn't, like, it's all this like hypothetical talk. It's like, oh, what if Trump got on a spaceship and went to Mars? Like, yeah, it's a hypothetical, but he's not going to actually do it, right? Yeah. So until there's something substantive, like that's what I want to see. Like if it there was this other thing that I remember seeing where someone was saying, oh, he wants to make his own social media, right? And he'll call it Trumpet. Right, like, so it's in a contrast to Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Like and that's the thing. It's like it's all these people just coming up with their own kind of wild speculations, and the news is guilty
they had
of
a
doing
smart
it as
idea,
well.
just like slap Trump on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And hope that he picks it up.
Yeah, and just what I was saying about what happens with these Trump folks that are abandoning Fox is, the other, if they move on to OAN or Newsmax or Epoch Times, these are far. I mean, the conspiracy theories in OAN.
Yeah. What about Breitbart?
Like, or you can Breitbart are also towing some conspiracy theories, but if they I suspect many of them might be prey to more of this QAnon type conspiracy theory.
Okay, this QAnon stuff is like really, really like small. Like there's extremely small, like there's more people a part of Antifa than there are people who like religiously follow QAnon, right? And the current incumbent president doesn't even believe Antifa is a thing. He thinks it's an idea, right? So yeah, QAnon is a thing, but it's not something that's going to be
I'm using
like
QAnon as an example of the far right conspiracies, right?
Yeah,
like,
but
so
the
QAnon is not the only.
Yeah, but the far right is like a very small contingent of what would be considered to be Trump's like avid supporters. There are Trump supporters who are QAnon, like that's not something that anyone can deny, right? Because the whole concept of QAnon originates from 4chan, right?
Yeah.
And from the popular poll board. But like people who actually follow it, like there are people who like grift on it. It's like, oh yeah, trust the plan, Q will come, and save us all. But like it makes up a small minority of all the people who represent Trump supporters.
No, I think you're right. And
Trump avid supporters.
Yes, and this is what I wanted to qualify. This is I started with this. It's not the 73 million people that voted for Trump. It's the very avid, Trump supporters who it's more dangerous to me. I would rather them be Fox News watchers than OAN watchers.
Like last time on the show, like there was talk here on the show about, there's going to be mass violence that was going to happen with Trump, and none of it happened. Like none of it happened. Where's this mass violence because Trump lost the election? None of it happened. There was violence still happening in Portland. There were people at the MAGA march getting hit at the back of the head and assaulted. I think one of the people was like a pedophile as well. Like not even joking. It's like one of the things that came out. That the guy who
I agree with you. The violence hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened, right? Now it could, I've heard the goalpost now being pushed to, now it's going to happen when the electoral colleges, the electoral votes happen, because that's technically when Biden gets elected. That's when all the Trump violence is going to happen. Like it keeps getting pushed. Like for the most part, people aren't going to go into people like life for the. Like they like their comfortable lives. They're not going to drop what they're doing in order to start a revolution and a civil war too, over their guy not winning. Right? It isn't like the times of the when was this the first civil war? Like 19
First World War?
No, civil war.
Oh, the Civil War. Ah, mate, I'm bad with American history.
Yeah, like 17 whatever, right? Like it's they're not going to drop like their watching TV and watching Netflix in order to band together to start some kind of violent revolution. Like I don't see that happening. I don't know. I see the tensions have not been higher in the United States, at least in modern times. And but like,
I think I know what you're saying, but that most people want to steer clear of violence. Like most people don't want to be around violence, right? And
correct.
And they don't want to resort to violence, no matter what their political leanings might be. But the at the same time, there's the partisan nature of politics and the growing kind of both on the left and right, and I don't say in equal amounts, but that is fomenting enormous hatred of groups, and to the point where so yes, there wasn't widespread violence, and I'm not going to shift the goalposts, but there was bomb threats sent to
there was like a bomb threat, and the FBI gets bomb threats all the time, and not every single bomb threat is a credible bomb threat.
Yeah, I know, but a bomb threat's a bomb threat. Like it's
correct.
For the counting of ballots in one of those swing states, and then so there was that, and then followed by, I think there was a group of people who were arrested.
Two people were arrested. Yeah. So did you read the rest of that article?
So I don't know. I watched the news about this.
So two people were arrested in Philadelphia, right, in Pennsylvania, and there was one woman that was with them that wasn't arrested, right? Now these two people were arrested because they were carrying guns, right? In Pennsylvania, every single county you're allowed to have open carry except Philadelphia, right? So in the one county they weren't supposed to open carry. They were open carrying. This was the reason why they were arrested. People saw it.
Wasn't the reason, at least from what I heard, was that there was someone had called in that they were planning a
So someone gave FBI a tip because they saw in Philadelphia where you're not supposed to open carry, people open carry.
And the van was parked in front of the the election ballot counting center.
Yeah. So
And-
so this isn't an example of like a terrorist attack or a political charge violence.
What is it then?
Well, I mean, we already like it's more than likely an example of them not understanding open carrying laws, right? In the one county that they were in, so Philadelphia, is the one place in Pennsylvania you're not allowed to open carry. In every other area, you are.
I thought they don't even live in that state. I thought they were they're not from Pennsylvania. They're from a different state. So they traveled to Pennsylvania. So anyway, we'll find out more about this.
So yeah, and this is what I'm saying. Like this, like again, this example, when you read like beyond the headline and you read more into an updated news, it doesn't seem like this was some kind of.
I'm concerned that you don't think it's an issue that someone.
Okay. So we've
the circumstances
in the one
ballot counting center
in the one county, right? So here's the thing: it's like
you're kind of suggesting that it's not an issue because
no. I'm not saying it isn't an issue because the FBI arrested them in the end, right? So someone called it. So someone, yeah, it could have been one, right?
If someone didn't put a tip in,
right? But this is what I'm saying: trying to frame this as being a form of, a politically charged election intimidation, when more than likely this was, well, they thought that they were allowed to open carry in this area because in the rest of Pennsylvania they're allowed to, right? Like that.
Sure, but you also see that Pennsylvania, the only place to, there's lots of places to park your vehicle. Parking in front of the ballot counting center.
I'm not saying it's big. I'm not saying it's big brain. I'm not saying it's big brain.
I'm just saying that you're kind of stretching.
No.
Giving too much of a benefit of the doubt. That's what it sounds like.
But there hasn't been. So what? They were going to commit a attack with, like, the mother of one of the people who were there. Like this is what I'm saying. Like, a lot of the kind of framing of what this particular thing was doesn't seem to add up.
It would be enormous coincidence that you happen to open carry
right
in the place you're not supposed to, while your van is parked in front of the ballot counting center.
Wait, so were they going to commit an attack with like one of their mother right next to them? Is that what was going to happen?
I don't know. It's like saying, well, just because a terrorist is with the child, they're not going to commit an act of terrorism. Well, if they're carrying the weapons, and it doesn't matter whether they're carrying a child with them or not.
Usually for with most other kinds of terrorist attacks, which are usually like lone wolf, they don't usually involve their family. It's usually the one person by themselves. They probably don't bring their mothers along to these kind of attacks either. For the most part, from what I understand. So, it could be a form. Again, we're going to find out. It's going to go through the process. But it seems more like, these people were obviously someone who lives in Philadelphia saw people open carry, which, hey, that shouldn't happen. I should call the FBI. There might be something happening here, right? And I mentioned before on the last show that in certain areas, where they were doing ballot counting, people were open carrying, and it's a form of protest because you're allowed to have militias, and militias are allowed to open carry guns and open carry guns in certain areas. So this is not something that's unique to just one part of America. It's been happening in multiple different areas. Yeah, well, and people did find it sus, and they called the FBI, and the FBI and people were rightly arrested for not understanding the law in specifically Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
but if you go one county across, you're allowed to be open carry.
Yeah, but the thing is that they weren't one county across, and their car was parked in front of the
correct, and they were
ballot counting center.
And that doesn't mean that they were going to commit a mass shooting.
That also doesn't mean that they weren't going to do
I mean, it certainly.
Well, I guess this is what I'm trying to say. They were with their mother. It completely blows my mind. The notion that, yes, I'm going to now commit a shooting.
No one's suggesting they were going to commit the shooting while the mother was there. But
the mother obviously
there's not many reasons why you would need to park your van in front of a ballot counting center while carrying firearms and
During an election,
and
yeah.
during while the counting is happening in the center.
Well,
And
but people have done
from
it
what,
in other, but and
from what
people
I
have done it
understand,
in,
Yeah, but that's the
and people
norm
have
in
done,
that area, right?
no, not well, yeah, maybe they're not familiar with the norm in Philadelphia. That's what I'm saying. This is what I'm trying to make the
Or maybe using
distinction
that as
with.
a
This is what I'm making the distinction of, right? Like, because people have been open carrying, and I mentioned it before last week, where people were open carrying in front of other poll electors and election counting areas, and people were, yeah, it's like, oh, this is a form of intimidation, this is a form of this. Yeah, it's not really, you're not going to get people on your side like holding guns and bring them outside. Like, people are just going to think you're a gun nut, which is exactly what these people are going to be seen as. Like, oh, great, like, yeah, or like, there's heaps of people who use guns in America and don't like commit felonies, right? They're just gun owners, and now these people have just, because they didn't follow Philadelphia, specifically Pennsylvanian law, they just made gun owners even worse because they weren't paying attention, right? And that's fundamentally what the situation is at the moment.
Yeah, and I just will add that the two people that were arrested were not related to each other, and they were both residents of Virginia. So they traveled to Philadelphia from Virginia.
Yeah, so the two people weren't arrested, but the third person
was the mother.
Was a mother,
Sure.
and who wasn't arrested.
Yeah. So it says the tip involved a group, possibly a family.
Yeah.
So someone from their family tipped them off.
I don't necessarily think from. Off. I don't necessarily think it doesn't say from the family.
Yeah, it says the tip involved a group, possibly a family who.
No. It says
okay, no. So I'm reading it wrong. Yeah, possibly.
So
yeah,
a group. So
yeah.
So a group of people who are possibly a family. Yeah,
possibly a family. So the second person wasn't a family member, but the first individual did have the mother with them. But they did travel from Virginia up to Philly, which I don't know how long of the drive that is, but it would be several hours. But then, certainly they could have been there holidaying with their mother and a mate while carrying firearms. That's and then
that sounds very American, unfortunately.
yeah, and then just coincidentally parked in front of the ballot counting center.
It's a pretty
that's
long
all
drive.
certainly possible.
It's a very long drive, 5.5 hours.
Yeah. So
well, again,
anyway, we probably spent a lot more time than we wanted to on this particular issue.
No, it's fine. Because I remember seeing that, and when you read further into it, there's a lot of inconsistencies that doesn't seem to add up to an attack, because that's what the media was trying to present it as. Oh, hey, look, here's two people were potentially trying to commit acts of violence at this ballot box, but a lot of the more minor details, like the third person that was involved in this that wasn't arrested, because you'd think if it involved all three people, that all three people would be arrested, but then only the people who were holding guns were, right? Yeah. So it doesn't really fall into the narrative that was presented when this was flowing around on the internet at the time.
Okay. ABC News says the FBI has labeled them a domestic terror threat.
As in they were part of a group that's a domestic terrorist organization?
That it's I don't know what they mean by this, but it says here the FBI has labeled them a domestic terror threat.
Okay, I'd be interested to see on what basis. Did they actually find actionable plans on what they did?
No idea. I'll have to look into it. But let's leave that for another day. I'm sure that there'll be more news to come on this, or maybe it'll just die out like every other
every other thing.
Every other lead, yeah.
They just fizzle out anyway. But so what we also wanted to talk about. Should we talk about the election fraud stuff? Do we feel like we want to talk about that?
It depends. There hasn't been there's all these kind of hypothetical things that are Dominion voting for stuff they've been involved in
Dominion being the actual voting system, the software
software company
that is installed in some of these contested states.
Mm-hmm. yeah, and it's really yeah, like there's all this kind of stuff, like yeah, like Dominion's been involved in like the elections in like Venezuela. You know, there's like all these kind of like improprieties, like, you know, people not being allowed to look, like Republican poll watchers not being allowed, like glitches in the system, right? Like there's all these kind of stuff that are bits and pieces, but like they haven't really kind of come to anything that's actionable, right? Like I mentioned before, like like people like again like the media's kind of shift from there is no election fraud to there's no evidence of mass election fraud, right? Because they have to clarify, because there is like two people got arrested and charged in California recently for I think like ballot harvesting from 2,000 like homeless people, right? Like but the thing is, in California, yeah, these people get arrested, but it's only 2,000 votes. That's like a drop in the bucket when it comes to
Yeah.
The grand scheme
the
of
Californian
things, yeah.
election,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not to say that it's not a like not something
Not an
that
issue.
should be
Yeah.
It's serious.
yeah, like it's something that, like, you know, if you're gonna have faith in your electorate and, you know, the system that's in place, like, you know, people like they should be investigated, right? But all the stuff that's kind of happening with like the Trump cases and stuff, like until they actually show something like, yes, this is the thing that is showing election impropriety, like it's all speculation, right? Like, you know, there are people who are like on the hype train. It's like, oh, we're gonna put all the Democrats in in jail or whatever.
Yeah,
like I don't know, right? Or it's like the complete opposite. It's like there's no election fraud. Just trust you know, like you know, Facebook with their fact checking, right? Like, you know, it you know, keep an eye open if something happened, but until they do, there's nothing to really like go off on, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
what is it? Like,
yeah,
oh yeah, Dominion. Yeah, it does sound like a really like a supervillain like came up with the name of this voting system. But it's like, okay, like, what about it? Like, you know, do we have like, you know, people that, oh, like, look at all these witnesses that are coming forward. All right, show me a witness, please. Show me a witness. show me one of these witnesses that are talking out. You know, and like there was one person, but it's like, well, yeah, then now you have to get it in front of a court of law, and then you have to get it in front of like the Supreme Court, and you have to get it done by December 14th, right? Like, what wasn't all the Bush v. Yeah, correct, for the electoral votes to be officially submitted. Right?
Oh, right.
Like Bush v. Gore like finished like I think like 2 days before they were supposed to like officially send in the electoral votes, and that was just one state. Right, Florida specifically. You know, to kind of like do what they're kind of like, you know, they have to flip like a bunch of states, right? They're doing like the hand counting in Michigan at the moment as well, like one of the largest like hand like recounts of like ever in America. So like all of it's going to be slow, like it like, you know, and yeah, like what is there really to do like until they actually bring about like this is like there so from a legalese perspective, it's like there's evidence and proof, right? Evidence would be I saw someone you know put in a vote for Trump instead of Biden, right? This is like a witness account, but it's not proof of election fraud, which is you actually have a ballot which shows that this person voted for Trump, but they instead in the system voted for Biden, right? Like that's something like actually actionable and can be actually presented in front of a court, and then the court can decide based on what they need to do, right? Until they actually do something like that, well, there's nothing. There's no legal form of election fraud that has happened.
The burden of proof is now with Trump, right? So he has to present and even if you were to show both evidence and proof to the court of one individual, right, to show that is that's a widespread and systematic.
Well, they don't necessarily have to show that it's like widespread, because like, you know, like, oh, if it happened in like Philadelphia, right, for example. So, well, no, but they don't have to prove that it happened in a state that they've won. Right? Why would they?
Exactly.
Why would they have to? Why do I have to prove like impropriety in states that I've won? Like I've clearly won. There's obviously went in the direction that was obviously in a fair election, right? They only have to prove it in the areas that they're obviously contesting. But the problem is, like, unlike with the whole Bush v Gore thing, it's like not just one place. It's like like 3 places minimum, 4, something like that. Like they have it in multiple places, but I mean, like if they needed to flip the places, it would be like 3. And it's a tall order.
It is, and this is why I just don't. Some of the people, even some of the betting markets. So most of the betting markets have closed their bets, but some of them are open, where people are like, it's like a 13 cent for Trump versus like $6-7 for Biden. Like, why? So some people still think that Trump has a chance, and
well that's because it's what, like 18 cents, and I get $1 back. Why not?
Yeah. maybe people are.
You're telling me if I put in $18, I get $100 back? Sign me up, right? Like
yeah,
that's what people are. That's what people are thinking. It's like, oh, I can make the because what's the return on like Biden then? It'd only be like like 72, is it 72 cents, right? 72 cents. You invest 72 cents and you get like whatever return, but it's not as big, right? No. How am I going to make money from that, Simon? How am I going to make money from that?
That's it.
It's not even going to pay for your KFC meal, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like with.
But that's a really big thing, though. There are still people who strongly believe that Trump is going to make a comeback. I don't know if you guys saw that video that I shared with you.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Did you watch that? Yeah. So the point that he makes there, and there's some people who strongly believe that, something's going to miraculously happen, and the widespread corruption is going to be unfoiled, and Trump.
Yeah, he's waiting for December.
Yeah,
what is
it?
December
14.
He's waiting for December 13 to reveal the secret.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like it's one of those things where it's like, well, like officially, like, yes, he's technically has a path to victory. Whether it's realistic is a completely different thing, right? Like whether, and it all depends on like these court cases. Like if they have something.
My own dad believes that, man. My own dad believes that Trump is going to stay in power. He's convinced.
I'm sure Trump wants to. Like, I don't know. Do you think he's just going to leave that easily? Like, I don't know.
No, he's gonna put up a fight. That's just
but you see, one of the main things that I want to see is like show me what you got. And I know that like
I want to see what you got.
Yeah, thank you. I know. Oh, the real ones know. Now, it's like, I like, again, show me what the impropriety is. If you have like 640,000 ballots that need to be disqualified, like show the
wasn't there that UPS the USPS employee that came out recently.
Yeah, with like under Project Veritas.
Yeah,
like the two
Veritas. Yeah.
I mean, again, like that. You see, that particular video is just evidence of election impropriety. It's not proof that the poll watchers, the UPS like they have someone and they can actually pin it to, like, they have communications between the UPS and the people above them saying, well, you have to postmark these mail before X and Y, right? This is just like, it's hearsay. His word versus their word, right? But it's supposed to be like, quote unquote, a start, but it needs a finisher. You need something that actually shows that, yes, like we do have, like, I'm a worker at the UPS and I did this, right? And most people are probably not going to, aren't going to incriminate themselves for the most part. So like, even if it did happen, yes, I'm going to not plead the fifth and tell you that I did this crime, right?
By the way, did you guys see that that lady chanting, like she was doing a prayer for Trump? That was scary. That was so scary.
No, I didn't.
The angels from Africa.
Yeah, they're coming. Angels from Africa are coming. I can see the light. I can see a victory.
Yeah.
She's
What do the African angels do?
Why the African angels?
They're gonna come and somehow vote for Trump.
Why are they African? That's what I'm wondering, man. I didn't know like angels were like race based.
Yeah.
So no, they're not a race. They're just in Africa. They were just probably on a safari tour or something.
Okay.
Just calling
on a safari tour. You have to watch
But-
that, by the way. You have to watch that. Yeah.
This video. You'll
Yeah.
you'll have to link it to me. I don't know. I'm afraid that these angels will suddenly appear if she starts.
The Angels for Africa. Yeah.
But yeah, I think. Actually, one thing. Did we want to talk about like the 50K student
Forgiveness? Yeah, the debt
forgiveness.
forgiveness. Yeah, I think
because
so.
actually, just to kind of round it up, I think the whole thing about the voter fraud stuff, like, yes, there's literally been a hit. Like, you can't deny that voter fraud happens in America
absolutely.
now.
Yeah.
Now, whether there has been enough, and whether there's been enough, and whether there's evidence enough that allows the Supreme Court to overrule like certain states to vote in a certain direction, like those are completely different questions, right? And it only will be answered, closer to like them actually bringing evidence up to the courts about it. I don't know, like, it's all speculation, and speculation's boring, like,
yeah.
for the most part.
It is. It makes me nervous that Trump and the administration is blocking Biden's transitional team from interactions.
Yeah.
So he's been blocked from receiving daily security briefing,
So-
intel briefings.
I did,
That's from foreign nationals, and the problem there is like, and there's a bit of irony in it, is because of the Logan Act. Now, the Logan Act is like something from like the 1800s that is essentially like I think like political parties like can't interact with like foreign foreign interests, right? And this ironically was used against Michael Flynn for his arrest, and was suggested by Joe Biden himself that he should be charged under the Logan Act. And so under the same kind of like it's really childish, right? Because in the end it's like, well, we're going to deny them access because you did this and that like, yeah. I think there's like the stuff about like the funds access to the it's like the funds like that you get
Inauguration funds,
and it's like, well, technically until he gets like elected,
certified,
it's like, well, yeah, like, so it's like, I don't know, it's like it seems to be like the legal thing that they're allowed to have access to, especially given
It's not
that
go for long anyway. It's just less than a month now.
Because it's like, because that's the difference. Like, people compare it to like Clinton's like the Trump Clinton election, right? But the difference is like Clinton didn't try and contest the election. If she did, we would see this kind of similar kind of like response from like the Obama administration, like 100%. They wouldn't so until it's all certified, they wouldn't give access to it. But because Clinton didn't contest the election,
but aren't you going into speculation then? And again, I'm not saying that they wouldn't, but I'm saying that that's a hypothetical that we don't know, because that.
Well,
that
yeah,
never
I'm
happened.
purely basing it on like
from a legal perspective,
from
they'd be well within their rights, but from
I'm basing it upon partisan politics and like the Obama administration and the action that they've taken before. Like, yeah, I don't see them.
Well, the Obama actually, after Trump won, so not when it was certified yet. So he'd declared victory. The cable news, but what I'm saying Obama
is that
invited him to the White House the following day.
And what I'm saying is that, like, and part of that is because, like, well, Clinton didn't contest the election, right? Because there wasn't a contested election, there would be no reason for any kind of controversy for them to deny access to the funds. That's
but hasn't he gone through the whole process of contesting the election and claiming election fraud?
Well, because
so that he doesn't have to do that. Like,
because it's still ongoing.
Because
even under Clinton, right? The counts took. So when the final counts,
but the certification hasn't happened, right? And this is the difference. Like, nobody was Trump was going to be Trump was going to become the president. Because it's the same thing. People were like, well, Biden and Trump were both president-elect under the same like categorization, right?
Yeah,
so even when he was the presumptive president-elect, he was still the president-elect because nobody was contesting the results of the election. That's the difference.
Yeah, but I mean, it's. Well, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that when the U.S. news bureaus declared a Trump victory, before all of the ballots had even been counted, right, and the election certified, because that takes several weeks to do. The Obama administration invited Trump over, as did the VP Biden invite.
Sure, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be giving them access to funds if the election was contested. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
which
but
is
I mean,
the current situation.
I know the point you're making, but I'm saying that the whole Trump actually said before the elections, he said, if I don't win, I will declare, it would be because it would be election fraud and I'll contest the elections. He actually said this before the election. So we already knew the strategy.
Well,
So,
I mean, even the Biden administration weren't going to call, like, they weren't going to call it quits even if they lost as well. Like, both sides weren't going to quit, like, this election. This election is way too important.
But
I mean,
I think there's a big difference in the way that Trump had already called for election. He called.
Well, I mean, they called for election fraud during the 2016 election when he was winning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even if you don't go that far, even if you look at just this year, right? Like before the election even began, he was already calling for. He was already saying that this is going to be, there's going to be widespread voter fraud.
Yeah,
so
well, that's the whole mail-in ballot stuff, right?
Well, yeah, again, like,
which is actually what ended up getting him. So he was kind of right about mail-in ballots.
Well,
stuff.
he knew
it. He knew.
Well, I mean, look. To be fair, like, this is what I mentioned, like a couple of shows ago, right? Like a bipartisan report commissioned by the former U.S. President Jimmy Carter found that, quote, absentee ballots remain the largest source of potential voter fraud, end quote, and that vote by mail is, quote, likely to increase the risk of fraud and of contested elections, right? Like, and this is subsequently what happened, right? We have a contested election and we have absentee ballots, right? There's all these other kind of speculation that people are saying, like, oh, well, they're going to bring up the 14th Amendment argument, which is which, by the way, is the same argument that was used during Bush v. Gore, that votes are not equally treated, right? Like, that's the 14th Amendment. That was the argument, right? That votes when I'm pretty sure. And so, like, if like a county like treats the vote this way and it's not consistent, but again, it's all this stuff that has to be certified by December 14. Like, it's in a month. It's less than a month, right? Less than a month.
Yeah.
Right.
So not long to go. It's just it's bad sport that not inviting the president-elect over to the White House. Sure, it's.
Well, I mean,
we already knew he was going to contest the election. Yeah. He wants to stay in power. Like, that's a given, right? So
we'll
see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, he is slowly accepting the defeat. If you actually look at the way that he's speaking now, you can see there's a change in tone, right?
I don't think he'll actually have any concession speech.
Yeah, neither. I don't think so either. Especially if they're going to go, if he hypothetically goes for the 2024 presidential run, he'll just say, I never won. Back. They stole the I never won. I never lost. They stole the election for me, and I'm back again for term 2. Like, that's 100%. Like, and that's again, if you're gonna have a base that's gonna be supporting you, that's the kind of narrative that you're gonna run. Right, like, I never lost. They stole the election from me. I was the best president. Right, like this right. This is the way that they're going to be. That's going to be the strategy. So yeah, like, I completely agree with you, Simon. No way is he going to admit, like, defeat.
Yeah,
wrong.
No. You do it well. You do the voice very well.
Thank you. It's the best voice.
The last topic is about the debt forgiveness for college debt. So the Biden is said to.
I guess maybe explain, like, the different system between, like, how we have it here and how we have it in America. That's probably a good way.
In Australia, we have a system known as HECS, which is basically that the universities charge a particular tuition fee that varies between around $25,000 to about $50,000, depending on what you're studying. Like medicine, if you're studying med, you pay closer to the 55K a year. If you're studying, a liberal arts, you might pay 25, 27, 30K a year. Now, the tuition, the university gets that full tuition, but out of our pockets as university students, we pay only a small portion of that. So I'm not going to talk about how low it was in my day, but if I were to guess what it is now, it would be in somewhere around $10,000, $12,000 a year. If I were to guess, somewhere around that number.
I wish I could tell you, but I don't know.
Yeah. No,
No idea.
okay. So it could be anywhere between like $7,000 to $10,000 a year. So the difference, is anywhere from like 20 to 50,000 is what the Australian government pay on your behalf. So the loan amount that you take from the Australian government is only the $7,000 or $10,000 per year. That gets you get charged interest or index, which is the CPI, annual CPI, for that loan amount. So you might, after a 4-year degree, you might owe the government, let's say at the very most with indexing, you might owe them anywhere from $35,000 to $40,000. Maybe if you studied med, you might owe them $50,000.
Yep.
In the United States, they've got kind of community colleges, which are kind of like our TAFEs. They might be about 20,000 US a year, to the Ivy Leagues, which might be closer to anywhere from 80 to 100,000 US dollars a year, like a Harvard or a Princeton. And so if you, a lot of wealthy people might just pay that up front, but there's a lot of people who are there on with a loan from the government, as a student loan. And imagine studying at Harvard University, even at 50,000 US a year for a 4-year liberal arts degree, you've got a 200K debt US dollars. So at a community college, you might end up with $80,000 to $100,000, right? So like most college graduates, and when I say college graduates in the United States, I think it's around 37% of American adults are college grads. So around close to that amount, 37% of people have some amount of university debt, college debt. And that total debt amount is in the trillions, several trillions. I think it was $3-point-something trillion in college debt, university debt. And the Biden administration are proposing to wipe the $50,000 from the balance of the debt balance of each university debt holder, which the controversy, the two sides is, one side says, well, hang on a minute, that's unfair, because what about all the people who worked really hard to pay off their college debt, and in the last 50 years of the United States have paid off their college debt and they've done the right thing? Isn't it unfair that you're now bringing in this debt forgiveness for this new generation, whereas we didn't get this benefit? So that's one side of the argument. The other side of the argument says, well, there's it puts an unnecessary stress on college goers in the United States, and they have to work jobs, multiple jobs to pay off their college tuition, education should be free anyway, right? Now, part of that argument I agree with, the other part I don't. So my view is, sorry, go ahead, Adam.
No, sorry, I just wanted to update that, the United States student debt is 1.6 trillion.
1.6 trillion. It's
large.
It's very large. It's very large.
It's especially when when people kind of look at debt, right? It's like, oh, it's debt. It's just debt, right? But to the average person, this debt doesn't mean anything. But in the grand scheme of holistically in a system, it's huge. In terms of what the country has to do. They have to borrow, they have to go to war, right? And all these kind of things to kind of
pillage another country.
It. And in 1.6, it's a lot. And it's interesting because it's what do you do? It to all the people who are like you said, Ivy League, or something, right? Then they're more than likely are going to be able to pay off their college tuition for the most part. I think the people who would be like more upset about it would be maybe people who are, maybe they are like, what is it? Community college people who, work multiple jobs, pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Yeah.
Kind of. And for people who don't know, you can't actually pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. That's the that's the joke about that term. But like, yeah, people who kind of like, pull themselves out. Well, they're not getting any kind of reprieve from it, like even like maybe a credit. Like it's like, oh, what's the alternative? Just give people $50,000, right? Like that's the government isn't going to necessarily do that, because again, you can write off debt that hasn't been paid because it's like just doesn't exist because we don't need it. It's just like fiddling around with numbers. But in terms of
giving out money would be a very different thing. Or giving out
it's a completely different thing.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
it's like when they say like how there was like an Amazon store that was supposed to be set up in like New York or something.
It already exists. It already exists. In Chicago, it already exists.
Yeah, well, there was like a huge they were they're putting themselves up for bidding. It's like, oh, who wants us? And it was all dependent on like which state was gonna like give like the most like tax write-offs if they set up their company there, right? And it's like, oh well, Amazon has like the potential to bring in $4 billion like into this country, into this state or something, but it's not like they write a $4 billion check and are sending it to them, right? Like that's not how like it functions, and it's very similar to this, right? Like you can't just give people $50,000 if they've already paid off their debt. So it does put them in like an awkward situation, but it's like, well, what are the alternatives if they're going to implement a student loan debt? It has to be implemented at some time, right? It can't just be like, oh, we're just going to put it off and not pay the debt off, right? So loan forgiveness has been something that's been talked about for like decades, and the escalation and the rising costs of colleges in America, because like the moment they alleviate some of the funding, the colleges increase how much it costs to get a degree, right? So it seems to be like I don't know, would you say that it's like something that's going to be like useful like going forward? Like is it just like a permanent 50K debt?
It's a one-time wipe off the balance.
But would this be so that's retroactive, but what about going forward?
Yeah, what about the next?
No.
Okay. So now you might be
only a few people get lucky.
Yeah.
What about so when does it kick in? When does it go into effect? When does the...
Well, it's all hypothetical now.
There's talk about it. Biden says the Biden people close to Biden are saying that's what Biden would consider. I personally, like, I look at it two ways. One is college debt a good thing? Like, it doesn't matter whether you had it in the past, where you have it now. Like, it's just the general principle of being in owing like several hundred thousands of dollars, right, of debt, right, for studying at university. Is that a good thing? And my view of that is no, it's not, right? Debt is a bad thing. Like, being in debt is bad.
What do you mean? I love being in debt.
Yeah. So being in debt is bad. Let's agree on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And the next thing is, well, so the people that claim, well, hang on a minute, I worked hard to pay off my debt. So sure you did, but just because it was bad for you doesn't mean that then you have to force something that was bad for you onto others, right? Because the thing is bad. So it was bad for you, I understand. Yeah, you were born maybe at the wrong time, but doesn't mean that just because it was bad for you that you have to then make sure that it's also bad for everyone else.
But here's the problem, right? Like that's why, because I'm, if it's like retroactive
as well, man.
It's a hazing ritual, right? They're used to that in America as is. But it's like, what about people going forward, right? Like all the people who get a new degree now, they're gonna be put at a disadvantage.
About the new students, people who are leaving the high schools.
I guess the way I look at it is, I don't think this is a solution. I think
it seems like it's like a band-aid.
It is a band-aid.
It's a band-aid, and
at best.
And this is why I'm thinking of this as an economic stimulus solution. So the situation that we're in right now in the United States is, if there's a lot of people with college debt, right? And if you want to stimulate an economy that's just been ravaged by COVID, the best thing to do is take away some of that, give them some debt relief so they can use the money that they would otherwise have paid towards paying off their debt to buying goods and services, which stimulates, economy, creates jobs. So I look at this 50K write-off per balance as an economic stimulus for Americans. And
So what would go into
big
loan
corporates?
payments?
Well, if these large corporations have been given close to $2 trillion, right, since in COVID as basically package, right? Well, maybe 1.5 trillion. I don't know. Some in the $1 trillion mark.
Yeah.
But if they can be given economic stimulus, that implies, and that basically functions as trickle down economics. So you give all these people money in the top, and it trickles down, and we know it hasn't trickled down. So
you're telling me Bezos's money isn't going to come to me? What's going on?
Yeah, I know. It's
he's not passing on those savings to me every time I buy that Amazon yearly delivery thing membership. Damn. What?
Well, are you telling me it's not going to happen?
I'm still waiting for that check from Bezos.
Bezos himself.
The alternative, how about you give them some? You give them some Americans debt relief, which means that some of their family budget that otherwise would have gone towards paying debt can go towards goods and services, which will stimulate the economy, which will be a good rebound. So I think it's a good idea, not because personally I don't think it goes far enough in relieving the problem of debt for college debt, educational debt. But it's a good economic policy of stimulus and stimulating the economy.
Yeah, you see, I'm not an economist, so I'm not too sure whether it does result, do you know whether alleviating debt does directly result in an increase in...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So that's the thing, right? If it doesn't, well, okay, but then to what extent, right? Shouldn't they be alleviating more than 50K then? What's the limit?
I think that's the limit that he's allowed without going through the Senate.
Oh, okay. So
the 50K is his limit as a president.
Okay. That he can,
I don't know who established that principle, but I feel America's really weird. The president has a limit of how much debt he can forgive for college students. That's so weird.
Let's call it a 50.
I think it's called checks and balances. Yeah. but not the right kind of checks that they need at the moment, right? Because I don't know. It's with everything that's people in some countries, mostly European countries, education's free. Even over here, we've got a solution. I think they even updated some of the policies as well in terms of which degrees you study are going to cost.
I'm going to be controversial here. I think college education should not be free.
I don't think that's controversial. Yeah, I think some people. I think it's a bit of a pipe dream to.
Someone's just looking at me like, "What? Did you just say that?" Yeah, I did. I said it.
Look, I think I do. I can see, at least one.
There's a lot of hex abuse in Australia. A lot of hex abuse.
Definitely, there's definitely
people that enroll in course after course that fail, and re-enroll and fail and drop out. And then
you're telling me they're not going to pay off their hex debt? Is that what you're telling me?
No, and that's okay. You and I will.
But that's the thing, right? With I guess it kind of goes into the question. I guess it's a good question to bring up. Is should education be free? Wow, look at us tackling the interesting question, the big issues, right?
I think the basic education, I think up to school level should be free.
Up to high school.
Up to high school, I think beyond that it makes perfect sense. Because that's where you got to put you got to put money where your mouth is. So once you want to really pursue something, of course you should have support for those who can't afford to go into the big courses, and systems like HEX can really help people who would otherwise be stuck into that poverty circle. Someone who comes from a really poor family would otherwise find it very hard to kind of break through or get a loan and pay it off, while supporting their family. So it does help a lot of people break that cycle of poverty, especially in countries like Australia. I think it would be a lot harder in countries like America. to really break out and chase your dream and be honest. People are working 2 to 3 jobs. 40 hours is not even considered like a normal week for them.
Yeah.
What about you, Simon? What do you think about
Ooh,
what about like education?
Good.
What about
We don't. I don't think we have enough time to go through what
Yeah,
I think
that's
about education. So I think undergrad degrees have less value now than they ever did. And
I can agree with
I
that.
agree.
So getting with the Australian government paying 90% of your tuition, raking up a debt of $35,000 to $50,000, just seems so silly for what you get, for what you learn in return, and what skills you can apply to the workplace. So I think what I would rather is maybe a different system. I think university should be a research institute. So you go to university to do research, right? And if you're not doing research, then university is not the place for you.
What if I want to be a painter? What if I want to be?
There's training courses for that, but that doesn't need. So you can do a training course, a short course, a diploma, a certification path that skills you up to be a certified electrician, a certified painter that follows the Australian rules, regulations, and
What about
standards.
What would you say about
if you want to be a
what about an
computer
engineer?
programmer?
What about
you
an
can
engineer
do
who doesn't want to go any beyond?
So basically, what is an engineer? An engineer just needs to comply with the engineering codes and practices
just the
and standards,
standards,
right?
Yeah.
So how long does that take to learn in university, right?
Not much,
because
yeah.
most of what you learn on the job, right?
I agree with
so
you.
you all you need is maybe a 12-month training course in a particular
24
field.
at best.
24 at best. And the reality is,
a lot of it
these
is
days,
fluff, right? Like a lot of the topics that you
I can agree
learn,
with that, yeah.
it's just fluff because if you go into a certain direction, you don't even end up using a lot of those.
Well, and technology, the way
principles,
things are moving so exponentially faster. So whether it's technology or the sciences, things are moving at such a fast pace that what you learned in university is not what is even relevant in the industry, and it won't be. And what you're in the industry learning now is not going to be relevant in even 2 to 3 years. Like in the projects I work on and the technologies we use in those projects, if I go to a project in 18 months, it will be a completely different stack of technologies because things in the technology landscape move so quickly. And as it does in other fields of science and engineering and STEM, and there are, society is moving so quickly now that what I think the best course of action is we do short courses that are very targeted based on our interests. We do that, we get into a job, we enjoy it, we don't enjoy it. We might have a career in that field for 5, 10, 15 years. We move on to the next one. Yeah. And it's not like it used to be where you start,
quickly, right?
Yeah, that's where you start in a firm when you're straight out of university and you work there for 40 years. That's just no longer the case.
Right? Well, I was going to say, it kind of sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that like maybe there might be like there should be maybe a more focus away from like pure theory and more practical in terms of people like explicitly using the skill set that they learn in university and using it like like you said, like maybe it's in an institute, maybe it's an actual firm, rather than they just have their like head in a book and they're just kind of doing a lot of theory work, right? Like I definitely know that like when I did my honors degree, like that was like the first time I actually like felt like an actual scientist.
Well, that's right? Because you were doing research.
Well, yeah, exactly. And well, actually, technically, there was like a time before that I felt, but like, yeah, with when you do your honors, it's like a. Is
that when you're looking through the microscope at like some substance? Is that what?
What when I do my honors?
No. Sorry. Anyway, let's move on.
But yeah, like. But then like a lot of the stuff that I learned like during my undergrad, like it was useful, but like it's different when you're actually like thrown in there and you're actually having to do all the like the practical work, right? And I know in like some universities they like focus on like a hybrid system between like doing things out of theory and things that are practical. But yeah, like I definitely agree, like having a more like practical based like education would be far more beneficial for like the human condition in general, rather than it just being about a bunch of like boxes that we need to tick on a syllabus, right?
Yeah, and so I would rather have universities basically produce research and focused on research, and other institutes that can spin up, or maybe industry focused learning paths that are sponsored by industry groups, and where the curriculum is developed by the industry groups, basically tailoring to a particular path, and it's no more than maybe 12 to 18 months, right? It seems like that's the most cost-effective way to skill people up in the times that we currently live in, which is such rapid pace of change.
Okay, I like it.
I
Just throw him to the wolves, mate. I like it.
I think
how are they going to learn to fight wolves if they don't fight wolves? All right.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the biggest problem is these educational institutes are using students as a way to just make money, right? Like you throw them into a 4-year course.
I mean, look at the situation with China, and how like a lot of universities are suffering because they don't have foreign students coming in.
Yeah. It's just obvious, right? Like you stretch the course out to the point where a lot of those units that you do have no contribution whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like all it is now is everyone's on these Zoom calls and they're paying $50,000 of tuition a year for learning over Zoom. Like, so clearly that is not worth that money. Like, clearly.
What aren't there online class? There were online classes. Now everything is an online class, right? Like, imagine. I remember seeing in America, like somebody like got billed, right? Like for their like course or whatever, and it's like internet fee and it's like campus fee. It's like I haven't even been on campus, right? Like how
some of them have never seen the damn campus, man.
Right? Like that's the situation at the moment. Everybody's on Zoom. You might as well just pay for a Zoom membership.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my 2 cents around education. So I think there needs to be a massive global overhaul of how education, higher education is.
I do agree. I wish the upskilling process was a lot quicker. I feel like upskilling process nowadays, unless you're doing like a short course or a diploma, otherwise it's it could take you up to 3 to 4 years, again, just to get a new gain, or maybe change your direction, right? Like altogether. It's not easy to change your direction now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like it's just, so it would. I think there's a lot to say about being able to have quick mobility in your career. So if I've done computer science, and then I want to dabble in biology, I should be able to pivot quickly, right? Yeah. I shouldn't have to spend 4 years in a degree to be able to pivot to that. And there's a lot that I would have learned as a career in computer science that I can take with me as a biologist after a year of doing a targeted, structured, industry-based learning course. That will be probably more valuable because I've spent, I've known another discipline and I can apply that discipline to a new discipline. And so, to give you an example, and Adam, you know about this, but the DNA strand, so the two Crick and what are the two?
Crick and Watts, I think.
Crick and Watts, right? Yeah, they were both not originally from a biology background. So they're, if I remember correctly, they were either mathematicians or physicists.
Crick and Watson.
Crick and Watson. Yeah. So they were but both either physicists or mathematicians that came into.
That came into
biology.
I have it here. They say molecular biologist, biophysicist, and neuroscientist. So maybe they weren't originally the case, but I can't.
And I remember watching a documentary, and what really helped them unravel the DNA strand or come up with that concept of it's quite an interesting one because it's like double helix. Like who thinks of that?
Well, because DNA was like a fringe science. It was like a hypothetical molecule. That was used to explain the outcomes.
The Higgs boson of biology.
Yeah, in a way, yeah, exactly. The God particle. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, like yeah, sorry, as you were saying.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot more value in pivoting from one career to another.
Well, I mean,
Um,
actually, just to kind of like to simplify it, like if you have like a background in like computer science and you're going into biology, there's like plenty of like areas that you need like computer sciences to analyze like within the biology field in and of itself, right? Like if you want to run like like all the stuff that's happening at the moment with coronavirus, right? It's doing analysis,
data mining,
data mining, doing analysis of like the actual sequence, doing sequencing of on new strands, like things like that, right? So that all doesn't get done under a microscope; it gets done on a computer. So so there is crossover, and and it would be good. But I guess we have to get more efficient at trying to do that kind of crossover between different fields, right? Like even like biology and law, right? You can go into and be like a patent lawyer if you have if you can be one of those soul sucking people if you need to be, right? Because they need them.
And so one of the things that I think this model that I've mentioned solves for is a lot of God, how do I say this without getting censored on Twitter? A lot of these fields that Adam, I think we all agree that
don't contribute too much. To
the
human condition.
Yeah, let's say don't solve a lot of like problems, but maybe create more than they solve. Those disciplines have no industry focus, and so
name a few. Name and shame. Name and shame.
Name and shame.
Look, many of them may live in the arts.
Yeah. I guess so. I guess.
Like arts is, here's the thing. Arts is kind of broad. Right?
Yeah, I have a very different outlook of when it comes to arts degrees. I think they're much more complex, right? Like they may not be out there looking for work, quote unquote work, but I think those things are necessary. I mean, you look at countries where arts is not valued, and you will see there's a deterioration in culture and just in the cultural progression. Like it's almost at a stalemate, and that's something that I've personally experienced and noticed in Pakistan, where arts is not valued, and
don't get me wrong. Things that are valued by society, right, there will be there obviously will be training paths for, because they're valued in society.
Yeah.
But if I just wanted to study, God, I just like I don't know. I don't want to say.
Well, no, I think there is. Sorry, well, maybe I'll try and filibuster in the meantime, right? Like people do make a kind of like a false like equivalency between like something that's like fine arts and maybe like an arts degree, in the sense that like somebody who doesn't know what they want to do, maybe they do their first year and it's like a general thing, and then they specialize and become like a biologist, right?
I figured out how to say this.
Oh, here we go. Let's go.
Like there's not I'll say the things that are great, like for example, there's there's industry needs graphic artists, graphic designers. The industry needs those people, right? The industry needs historians, right? Because they historians, history is important. We need to teach our kids. We need to teach those things. So there'll be an industry path for historians, right? I'm just giving you examples of maybe what will remain and ought to remain.
Right.
Yeah.
What about? Isn't journalism also another pathway through the arts degree?
Exactly. So those things are important because we need journalists, right?
What about communication degrees?
Yeah, you need, but you also need.
I don't even know what that is.
Right?
What is a communication?
You also need fashion designers. Fashion designers are also.
Yeah. So look, a lot of the arts fields are covered by these industry-based, learning paths. They just don't take 3 or 4 years.
But I think even under like the system that you're trying to that you presented, having it so that people are kind of put in a practical situation where they can, and to be fair, in America, for example, they how they have like unpaid interns, right? You'd want to make sure that it doesn't become something like that. You want to make it so that there are standards that are regulated and they have to follow, and that would happen if you're trying to get into fashion or you're trying to be an artist, right? You have a mentor.
You need to know S, small, medium, large, extra large is like what the dimensions are for those sizes. Like, surely there's codes behind that.
God damn it. Yes,
Like
for sure.
I can Google that. Like, let's see what the Australian.
What is it? What is it?
Australian
Graph?
standard
I'm not going to Google that.
What's the
I don't
Australian
want.
standard for the
I don't
shoe
want.
size?
I don't want Google knowing I'm looking up that stuff.
For sure. But yeah, but I think that was pretty comprehensive in terms of us talking about student loan debt and the future of it.
Yeah. Watch the space.
Watch this space. Direct all your hate mail towards Simon, please.
Whew. So, we're at the end of the show. Any wise words? Because I haven't said any.
Well, I think Watch This Space is a good one, and hopefully we can get Tak back for the next show wherever he is.
Yeah,
paying off his student
wherever.
loan debt.
Hopefully he's wrapped up his the Bengali grocery shopping.
yeah, the Bangla Dukan shopping spree.
The Bangla Dukan. I'm sure he's finished that. Like and subscribe, fellas. You know what? We actually got more subscribers in the 2 weeks that we didn't have our show.
There you go.
Than the previous 2 weeks where we did run a show. So I'm just saying, you guys are doing it all wrong. I'm not blaming our viewers, but
just putting it out there.
Problem. You guys are the problem. If you're not subscribing, you're not telling your other friends to subscribe, then am I what? Sama, don't nod your head. Come on. You know.
No,
you
we
know
love subscribers.
We love you guys. And we missed you. And we'll see you again next week. Gotcha. Next week we have a special show, by the way.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
We have a special show. We have a guest speaker, and we'll be talking about mental health. And we'll be talking about mental health in general terms.
Yeah.
But more specifically, we'll be talking about mental health in the context of South Asian culture and how certain elements of our culture and cultural baggage can exacerbate mental health conditions and also mental health and how that affects men, because there is suicide among men is at epidemic proportions in all developed countries, and
it's been like that for decades.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be ignored.
It's not. Look, I think the problem is that it's not changing, right? Like it's been like that for a while, and not enough has been done about it.
Yeah. And we've talked about some issues that women face, and I think this is an important one to discuss that men face, and many men face alone. So it's an important one. We really want you to listen to what we have to say and our thoughts, but also maybe our guest speaker will be able to elucidate us on her own experiences. So we'll see you all next week.
All right, take care.